Load ErrorHarley-Davidson has had so many ups and downs over the last 118 years, you gotta think it'll pull through this, too. The motor company has made motorcycles continuously, though not always profitably, through 2 world wars, 1 Great Depression, and countless recessions and labor problems. In recent years, things have been particularly tough, with sales steadily declining each year, tumbling 46% from what they were at their most recent peak. Worldwide sales were 270,000 in 2014 but slid to just 180,000 last year. In the pandemic year of 2020, Harley was slapped with ginormous tariffs for its European sales, just like the protective tariffs Harley asked for and got from the US government in 1983, laid off 700 employees worldwide, let go of its CEO, brought in a new guy from tennis shoemaker Puma, and announced yet another 5-year plan to profitability. There are other stated goals, all handily compiled in the company's new Rewire 5-year plan, announced in February of this year. The first pillar of that plan is profit focus, which includes concentrating development dollars on the bikes that are making money now. Harley-Davidson will invest significant time and resources on strengthening and growing its leadership positions in its strongest, most profitable motorcycle segments, touring, large cruiser and trike. So the traditional cash cows, the bikes bought by aging yuppie baby boomers that formed the bread and butter of the company's income throughout the 80s and 90s, will not be ignored. That makes sense. Don't kill the cash cow that lays the golden eggs. HD also plans to expand beyond motorcycles by growing its parts and accessories business, financial services, and even riding gear and general merchandise, t-shirts and beer cozies. There will also be a new Harley-Davidson certified pre-owned motorcycle program, which also sounds entirely reasonable. And finally, look for selective expansion and redefinition. That means not only expansion into the adventure bike segment with this all-new Pan America, but the creation of a middleweight cruiser, too. Not much is known about the middleweight cruiser except that it will likely cost less and therefore, conceivably, attract those coveted younger buyers that will keep the doors open in Milwaukee for another generation. Those are all fine goals and it sounds like a solid enough plan, but it's a little like me saying, I plan to win 4 Pulitzers by 2022, 5 more in 2023, then the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2026. Saying you're going to do something and then actually doing it are 2 different things, and before Hardwire there was a plan called Rewire, and there was probably another plan before that. Harley's official Hardwire press release and the details on its media page are laced with vague statements about profitability that almost come across as marketing mumbo-jumbo. I asked to speak to new president and CEO Jochen Zeitz to ask what his thinking was behind this particular plan, but I was instead offered an interview with a PR representative. He was a great PR guy, and I like PR guys, so I'm not complaining, and indeed, the PR guy was enthusiastic about Harley-Davidson's future, too, so maybe Harley really will bounce back. Its first quarter 2021 financial report was positive on all fronts, but I don't know how long it'll be before electric motorcycles catch on in a big way. While the Bronx does not officially exist, and while sales of live wires may or may not be struggling, reception for the Pan America adventure bike has been enthusiastic on all fronts. Press reviews of the Pan America were likewise enthusiastic. And with good reason. The civilian versions of this car are known as Checker Marathons, while the fleet versions are called Checker Taxicabs. This one is a base model A11 taxicab. Checker made these cars through the 1982 model year, and they remained plentiful in taxi service for at least another decade. This one has been through some rough use. By Midwest standards, the rust isn't too bad, but it's pretty horrible for Colorado. I'm pretty sure the seats came from some other car. There's still a 1981-1982 planner inside. Many layers of paint, many layers of Bondo. You can see the ground through the floor in front of the driver's seat. Body filler over rust over body filler. Repeat. This appears to be the air conditioning unit installed by Checker. The 2015 Bear Creek Lake Park Pass indicates that this car was on the road in the not-too-distant past. Let's start with that engine. Harley says it is all new from the screws up. Called the Revolution Max 1250, it powers both the Pan America and the Pan America Special. It's a stressed member of the chassis, helping to reduce the overall weight of the bike to what Harley says is 25% less than a BMW GS, the leading competitor in the class. The liquid-cooled 60-degree V-twin, even the engine oil is liquid-cooled, features 2 crankshaft connecting rod journals offset by 30 degrees. To give the engine a 90-degree firing order, which Harley says produces a smooth power delivery, especially at higher RPM. The firing order also produces a pleasing exhaust beat that doesn't sound anything like the traditional potato. The cylinder heads each have 2 intake and 2 exhaust valves controlled by double overhead camshafts that themselves feature variable valve timing on both intake and exhaust. The engine features highly efficient roller finger valve actuation with maintenance-free hydraulic lash adjusters. There are even 2 spark plugs in each cylinder. 2 balancers in the engine leave just enough vibration to make the V-twin feel alive. All of the above combine for 150 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque with a redline of 9,500 revolutions per minute. The suspension is less fancy on the $17,319 base model Pan America, with passive Showa shocks and dual-sided rear aluminum swing arms that save even more weight. Step up to the $19,995 Pan America Special and you get all kinds of electronic and mechanical goodies. That starts with electronically adjustable semi-active front and rear suspension. Set it to one of 5 pre-programmed ride modes: comfort, balanced, sport, off-road soft, and off-road firm, and the magnetorological shocks carry you over dirt or street with appropriate ease. On top of that is a truly neat adaptive ride height function that lowers the bike 1 to 2 inches when it's stopped, depending on the automatically selected rear preload, to make it easier for riders of a certain height to put both feet on the ground at stop lights, and to get on the bike in the first place. Depending on which of 3 submodes you set it on, it can either raise and lower automatically so you don't have to think about it at all, operate at a short or long delay, or keep it at a certain ride height all the time if set in locked mode. Hill hold control can hold the bike in place when you've stopped on an uphill section to make it easier for you to take off again. Just hold the brake a little longer at the stop to activate the system. There's more, but we have to get to the ride review. Our first many hours were spent in very slow speed maneuvers practicing the art of turning and braking in sand, gravel, and plain flat dirt while standing on the pegs. All the Pan Americas had been custom fitted to each rider, with the assumption being that they'd be standing on the pegs all day. Thus most of the bikes had 2-inch risers on the handlebars, which were perfect for peg standing. The seat heights can likewise be adjusted to suit almost any rider. In the various groups were one rider who was 5 feet 7 inches and another who was 6 feet 6 inches. Both said they felt perfectly comfortable, and the 5 feet 7 inches rider was easily able to get both her feet on the ground. My own seat height was a little too low, something I didn't really notice until I sat on a regular ride height Harley. Be sure and take time at the dealership to get yours set up right. At first, the seating position on my test bike felt a little like an Iron 883, with narrow handlebars raised higher up. That might have been because I didn't ask for a higher seat height, which was my own fault. If you're standing up all day, your seat height doesn't matter. When I got home, I immediately got back on a BMW R1250 GS Adventure that BMW had loaned me, and I felt much more comfortable on that. But again, I could have adjusted the seat height on the Pan America and probably been just fine. Out in the desert dirt, the first thing you notice is the low-end torque available from the mighty 1250 twin. Just because the engine tops out at 150 horsepower doesn't mean you have to sacrifice any of the torque you'll need when crawling around at low speeds creeping up and down hills. The wide range of this engine was one of its most impressive parts. I could just imagine the VVT adjusting the cam timing for torque as we all crept around Rawhide's many different training courses. I found that in the slow maneuvers we were practicing in the dirt, I preferred the off-road firm mode because I felt it gave a little more control, but more experienced riders might want to play around with the modes to see what works for each given situation. At higher speeds, hauling across dirt roads, the off-road soft mode felt a little better. With a 6-axis inertial measuring unit, IMU, working in concert with front and rear abs, there are many ways the Pan America will help keep you upright when you ride. Cornering enhanced link braking engages the rear brake automatically when you apply the front to balance brake application as appropriate for a wide variety of situations. Cornering enhanced traction control keeps the rear tires from spinning. Cornering enhanced drag torque slip control keeps the rear wheel from locking up. The stock tire on the Pan America is a custom-made Michelin Scorcher Adventure. It worked just fine for our day in the dirt, but almost all of our riding was done on the flats. Had we faced some hill climbing or extended off-road, like an adventure across the entire Mojave instead of just one corner of it, we could have opted for Michelin Anarchy Wild tires, with knobbier treads. Either of these tires can be mounted on Harley cast aluminum or laced wheels. Toward the end of the day I got to take off into the hills, following Rawhide coach and senior tour leader Rob Day Sr. The Pan America remained comfortable on our longer ride at speed through the foothills of the Sequoia National Forest on the western edge of the Mojave. I tried to utilize all the tips and training I got after a day in the Rawhide riding course and, indeed, never fell off the bike even at a little higher speed. Eyes up. Look ahead, it worked. The last ride of the day was back to the compound on We 14, a 4-lane divided highway that connects Los Angeles with the mighty Sierra Nevada. Set it to sport, said Day. I did. Then, when there was a break in traffic, I opened it up. Harley offers any number of accessories for its Pan American, from hard and soft cases to full riding gear from Revit. Get some of that, too, when you visit your Harley dealer. It'll be worth it. In a sense, Harley is way late to the ADV party, but it definitely brought a gun to the gunfight of the Big Bore Adventure Bike Bash, and it did just about everything right. The Pan America will be a big hit. Will the Pan America save Harley? It'll definitely make a big, positive contribution toward that goal. Adventure bikes are kind of like the SUVs of the two-wheeled world. And while electric bikes will eventually become a thing, their time to make a profitable contribution to the company's bottom line may still be in the future. But Harley-Davidson has been in business for 118 years, so waiting a few more for the world to fully transition to EV bikes is nothing. The harder thing to figure out in this somewhat awkward transition period as the baby boomers age out, is how to draw the millennials away from their computer screens and onto motorcycles. Good luck with that, Harley, and everyone else.